people still to this day are looking at Microsoft from like 1998.
Yeah, we'll talk
That's what
about
they
that.
think.
I've put together like
Yeah.
a bunch of like
Yeah.
reasons why people don't choose it, kind of thing, and we'll go through some of those. And one of them is kind of that. It's
Yeah.
like you have an antiquated
And I
view of
think-
what Microsoft is.
Right. And then there's also this other view of like, well, startups aren't doing it, they say. And it's like this straw man argument. Well, they kind of are, but like, I get it. You know, there may be some startups that aren't, but that's not why you should pick something, you know?
Right.
And I can remember one of the better comments I had on Twitter is like, name one app that's built with Xamarin. And I said, okay, UPS. Is that good enough?
Exactly. Oh, you start looking at some of them that do. You're like, oh man,
Yeah, like,
okay, this is like these are giant companies.
Name a website that's built with .NET. Okay, Stack Overflow. Is that good enough? I mean, because they're looking at Facebook and the other things that they look at.
Yep.
Of course, Facebook built the stuff with their own tools. You know, like that's fine. It's not building every website. You know,
Right.
Heck,
Right.
most of them are built on WordPress. I mean, like when we start really looking at the numbers. So we're talking about apps, though, things that you get paid to build, and it's complicated and does something. That's what we like about .NET. All right, so we'll talk about .NET today.
Straight onto this. Short answer, yes. Thanks for coming.
TLTR.
Thanks for coming. We'll see you guys later. That was the 30-second version.
Yeah.
for those of you that want that. Because there's always somebody who wants that. Whenever we put out a 10-minute video, someone's like, you could have said that in 30 seconds. Like,
yeah.
Okay, we try. Like, we try.
We do try. And then there's always the guy that adds in the index for us, you know, at the front. You know.
Yep.
They're still adding the index to the one coding project. I saw it the other day. Someone's still, you know, because the other ones are getting buried.
Yeah.
So they're still adding in the index on the one coding project. So.
Yep. Which is fine. It's like 12 minutes something if you just want the answer, which is the bug tracker.
Yeah.
And then you watch for 30 seconds and move on and gain nothing from the video. Like, that's okay.
Yeah.
We're good with that. Like, it's okay, whatever.
It
is what it is. It is what it is.
Right.
So obviously over the past probably 2 years we've been doing the YouTube channel. We've always talked about C# and we've always talked about .NET, but right now, like, I guess the purpose of this video was, do we think it's still going to be good going forward? And we'll talk about why we think it is. And we'll talk about so on my little document that I created here, I had a section that's called Not Trendy.
Yeah.
Right. So this is kind of all the things we hear, and I labeled it that way, and this is kind of all the things that we hear about C# and .NET and Microsoft as well, overall.
Right.
Because there's a couple things. So the first thing I have on the list is, it's not trendy. If you look at what is kind of trending, you see JavaScript, like Node type stuff. Python is definitely trending.
Right.
And you're seeing this on places like Tech Twitter.
Right.
And I think you need to understand that Tech Twitter isn't the majority.
It's not. It's not. And here's what I've come to believe about Tech Twitter. And let me just say that we've talked about this a lot. How do you gain followers in Tech Twitter? Tweet about JavaScript and its HTML programming language. So there's a lot of things that go through there that are just like, I think there's a bank of questions somewhere that these, and they're Twitter bots, man. Like they just tweet the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
Like the common question is, tell me your favorite language and watch JavaScript. I'll see that 3 times a day. Like, and then,
right.
And you'll see the engagement under it. Like, it's not JavaScript or it is JavaScript or, and then should I learn a framework first or should I just learn JavaScript vanilla? So you'll see that 20 times a day in his HTML programming language. You'll see that like every day.
Yep.
The new one is, are you excited about Web 3.0? So, like,
this wasn't even on our list, but
over
Web,
again,
this Web 3 thing is like, man, okay. Like,
so when you see Tech Twitter, people will look at things that are that get engagement,
it's about
and they'll
trending.
copy that tweet.
Yeah,
and so it becomes this kind of like echo chamber of stuff, and people go to Tech Twitter to try to learn things, and it's not really where you need to learn things. There's other places to go.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean it's useless. I would love to have 50,000 followers on Twitter, but we've talked about it. But like, I just don't do that. Like, I just would feel kind of crazy about doing that. So.
Yep. We have talked about making a bot. We still may do. We still may do that at some point. Yeah. We still may do that at some point as like a side project, just as a proof of concept. We have this proof of concept bot idea, which we're gonna maybe one day we'll code it up.
on his HTML programming language. Every time we tweet it, look, we got 5,000 new followers. So
maybe it's like a case
funny.
study. We'll put it together,
Yeah.
we'll code it up, we'll run it for a year, and then we'll come back and talk about it, like how our Twitter bot blew up or something. Maybe that's
our Twitter bot went
video.
from 0 followers to 50,000 followers in 6 days.
Exactly. Yeah. Tweeting about junk, basically.
Put a course on Gumroad, or something whatever that place is called.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy.
But I think that a lot of times we take this advice as gold when we don't realize that a lot of Twitter tech is about engagement, and it's not necessarily about saying what's true and valid and things like that.
Yeah.
The second thing is not every developer is engaged in tech Twitter. And so that's the other problem. It's a very small subset. And when you start looking through the stuff that you're talking, it's the same group of people saying the same thing over and over and over again.
Yep.
They're just active on Twitter, and they basically re-say the things that get them engagement and get them follows.
It's one of those things where I say I said this, it's not the majority, it is a very vocal minority that can kind of, this is how it works, right? This is how social media works. You can sort of tailor the discussion. A few people can really drive something, but that's not to say that the wider majority of things is that way. It's just, it's not. Mm-hmm. It's not, because we know it's not.
Yeah. And then if you engage with the JavaScript developer, which is nothing wrong with JavaScript. Actually, what I would say is, in terms of C#, if you're building websites, you have to know 3 things before you learn C#: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. You have to know those 3 things. I would say that Bootstrap would be included in that list because that's our CSS framework of choice that we use. But so it's not like we're saying that JavaScript doesn't exist or you shouldn't learn it. If you're building websites today, you have to know that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But as soon as it gets complex and you need something on the back end, C# is the superior choice in the web world. So anyway, so trendy. Let's go down the list of trendy.
So here's another non-trendy thing: Microsoft and Microsoft marketing. And kind of tied into that, the confusion around .NET period. Because of the way that they chose to name it and the way that they chose to move forward with naming from .NET 5 Legacy through .NET Core through .NET 6. It's just, it's confusing.
It's confusing and people don't know what it is. And so therefore they don't adopt it. New people.
Yep.
Now, even I was confused very early on when they released .NET Core.
Yeah.
And they said .NET Core is a subset of .NET. And we're like, well, why'd you release a subset? We don't understand. So I still got to use .NET 4.5 because, .NET Core doesn't do everything. No, we want you to use .NET Core. Okay. And it was just really confusing, which one do I adopt? And so there was a big movement from .NET 4.5 framework. That's what we're going to call it, to Core, which now is Core has then evolved into .NET 5.
Right. Soon to be .NET 6.
So now they still to this day call it ASP.NET Core 5. And so because they know they can't lose that core monkeyer anymore when they should have started out with .NET 5 from the beginning.
Yeah.
And explained that this is the new version. But they were saying, no, this isn't new. It's different, which is true.
I think what happened here,
a lot of people,
and I think we've talked about this before, but technical people got involved in naming this. Marketing people didn't. They needed like the guy or the lady from marketing just be like, hey, can you come in and look at this? And does this work?
Yeah.
They'd have been like, no, that doesn't work. And they would have suggested a better naming mechanism or system or even around the education part of it. They do a bad job around even explaining what you explained. They don't do that well. They don't. There should be like little. We should be picking up on things. I never get like an ad or like an info or anything telling me about .NET ever. And literally, if anybody should get it, I should get it. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like the way that I'm like involved in this and what we do here, like we should be seeing like .NET type marketing and ads all over the place. I see nothing.
Yeah,
nothing.
And so while they do a lot of things and they're doing it, and I would say in the last 5 years. They've gotten better at it. So like now they are engaging on Twitter. They are engaging in the social channels. You do see some people that are coming from behind the desk or out of the cube to talk about what they're building. And so, and in the different teams, they're starting to do that. But you still have to find them a little bit. So there are some Twitch channels out there that are really good. Jeff Fritz has a great Twitch channel. Obviously, Scott Hanselman has a blog, a YouTube channel, a TikTok channel.
Scott's the best at it. Scott has he does the best at it. But Scott's, I feel like Scott's doing it like, it almost feels like he's doing it independently, right? Like it's almost like it's, and I'm sure that's like meant to be a thing, because his content feels organic, right? Even though he's paid to do this stuff, right? Like he's literally paid to do it, but his stuff feels very organic, and you don't seem to like stumble across Scott. You have to go find Scott, right? Once you know who he is, it's like, oh, this guy's great, like Untitled Chapter 7, whatever. But you do have to go find him. It's not something that just, you don't organically come across him. It doesn't happen. And I say organically, like you wouldn't get an ad that pushes you towards Scott's channel or something. They don't exist.
Yeah, and so like one of the problems I have with Microsoft, and what we're going to try to fix with Learn.Coder Foundry, and this is where we're going, is when you look at things like Blazor come out, which Blazor's groundbreaking. It is on, like, it's highly going to be, it's going to be big, if they can sell it. In other words, like what they build is cool. There's no doubt about that. Especially what I like the front end WebAssembly side, not as strong on the server side, but like, and that's another problem. They named them both Blazor and they're different. It's like, like, dude, like you can't, they're just different. So like, but in general, what Blazor allows us to do is run JavaScript in the browser using a thing called WebAssembly, which is a standard in the browser. A lot of people say, oh, it's just like Silverlight. Remember when they canceled Silverlight I'm like, yes, I remember that, but
it's not the same thing.
They don't explain that really well, because Silverlight they just canceled Silverlight because instead of HTML5, but they didn't really do a good job. Even when they did that, it's like, well, there's no more plugins in browser, so we have to move forward. And no one faults Adobe for canceling Flash. I mean, because, it doesn't run the browser anymore. So shocking, So that's the same thing happened to Silverlight. So with Blazor, they're saying, oh, that's the same thing. And they're not telling people like, no, this is the new standard. Like, this is where the industry is going to go. No, it's not going to happen overnight. But I would say from 5 years now, you're going to see a lot more apps or sites running in WebAssembly than you might think. The question is Blazor or Rust or the other implementation, who's going to win out? And when you really look down into it and you say, okay, let me look at who else is doing this, and you compare it to Blazor, and they have the tooling and everything, it's fantastic. But the industry as a whole is saying, well, it's just another way to build a website. I can build that with anything, And so like, and so you go to look at the Blazor example, and it's literally account button, like we're adding account to a page. I'm like, what are they doing? Like why haven't they built Premiere and Blazor? Like, why aren't they hooking up with Adobe and saying, we'll build this so we can show how Blazor would work?
Yes, they need to.
Or why aren't they building like an interface, an integration with like something like Frame.io, and looking at these different workflows, which I think is coming. People are going to do this. I mean, like, it's not like I'm like not talking about what's going to happen in the future. And it's just one of the avenues. And like, so when people look at Blazor and they look at the samples, it's super simple. It's not even really a to-do list. It's a counter. It's like, and so therefore they think, well, we don't need to adopt that. I can do that in React. Yes, that's not what WebAssembly is meant to do. I mean, like, it needs to be harder. So we're going to build bigger projects utilizing this technology, enterprise-grade projects, so we can show people like, this is what we're
kind of what
about.
You can make.
This is why you need to do it. And I think on the education front, they kind of fail because everything is still hello world, counters, console apps, trying to show you C# languages instead of trying to show you what's possible. Like what are the big dreams that we can tackle with .NET? And I think that is where I'm motivated, and that's where I'm at. And then when I see people like American Airlines rewriting their entire thing in Web API, like, when you're rewriting the stuff for American Airlines, they've got to pick something that rocks. So that's amazing.
Exactly.
So anyway, so I think that's the other thing. They're not trendy. Sometimes they don't do a good job in marketing, and it's left to us because .NET has brought so much value to me personally. As far as like, I built a consulting company, I built a bootcamp on it. Every time I build a website, I can use this stuff. And then when I really get down into the tooling and I watch other content creators create a web page with something else, and I just like, you see me sometimes like, why in the
All the
world would you go
time.
through all that effort?
Yeah.
Like,
All the
you know,
time, you were like, what are they doing there? Wow, okay, they're doing. Okay, that just comes built in.
what is all this command line? Like, you know, you realize that like in ASP.NET, like that's built in. I mean, like you don't have to do that.
I think we were talking
They
about
have
routing
built
or something,
something.
right? I think
Yeah,
that's what we're talking
routing
about.
or security or those kind of things. Scaffolding. Every time I show scaffolding and generate a database with CRUD operations, people think I'm like Harry Potter. Like these, like, what kind of wizardry is do that? Or they'll say, "You didn't do that from that command line. That's not possible. You didn't do that." I'm like, "Yeah, that's I did." Like it's that easy to do, and I think that is the type of stuff that they don't really sell it hard. And so, hopefully, one day, you know, they'll recognize us and we can put the little flag on the website somewhere.
That'd be cool. That'd be cool.
So, yeah.
But maybe not now. We've just you know, said all these horrible things about them. You know.
Well, I just think it's true, and I think that they need to like pay attention when they name something. Is this going to bring confusion? And so even with .NET 5, we literally asked Scott Hampson, how did the name come out? And he said it was bigger than 4. That was the thought.
And you know that is
so
genuinely why. It's a joke, not a joke. That's genuinely
it's not
why.
a joke, man. Like, so like now I have .NET Core 3, and then it goes to .NET 5, and people were just under. So is 4 better than Core 3? Nope. Core 3 is superior to 4 or 5. 5 is that the release of 4.5? No, 5 is the next iteration of .NET Core 3, and it was just like confusing people to the end degree. So now they've went through that pain, and now we have a regular release number.
Yeah,
so
I'm thinking I think that
5,
problem's been solved. I think that's gonna get better now.
And 7 going forward.
Hopefully,
but they did rename Xamarin to Maui, and that's another thing. Like people don't understand: is Xamarin dead? No, it's just been renamed, and they don't communicate that to people, and that's one of their problems.
And here's the issue with that too. And it's compounded now by the fact that Maui got delayed. So now people, when that announcement of Maui getting delayed happened, that very day people were like, oh man, they came back to it's a Silverlight thing again. It's like Microsoft, it's vaporware. It's never going to happen. Like they're not even going to put it out anymore. Oh, they've killed it off. Like, no, you don't understand. And now they've left themselves in this like middle ground where people are reluctant to do Xamarin because it's going away, right?
Yeah.
Despite that it's morphing into something else, but it's going away.
Yeah.
So they're not going to start new projects on that. And this thing is now delayed / people think never coming out. So they've left themselves in a bad situation with that. That was just bad. They handled that wrong.
Right. So, and then I think that they'll call Maui multi-application UI. I hope they stick with that.
It's a good describer.
Yeah, it's a good describer name. So hopefully they'll do that. But if you're confused out there, .NET Maui is the evolution of Xamarin. And what I was saying a year ago is like, don't worry about Xamarin. It's just that Xamarin's going to be renamed to .NET Maui, and think of it in that terms with new features. And so it's like, what they should say is Xamarin is now Maui with new features. And the reason we renamed it is because it's no longer just mobile. Not only can we do mobile, we also can do desktop, and we can use different tooling to do that with C#, traditional C# development, where I build a website, I build a desktop app. But if I want to use my web tools to deploy to the desktop using Maui, I can use Blazor to do that. And I think that is where they could really change the framework. Because one thing that's exciting about Maui that gets me excited is they're the only company doing this where literally I can write a Mac OS desktop app. I can also write a Windows app, and also can deploy that to iOS and Android. There's no one others that can do it at that level. Other than other kind of workarounds with it, just like Electron type things, right? Which we know don't work well in the Apple Store. You got to build native, and these are all native apps, and they're figuring out how to deploy those natively on each of these platforms with one code base. Yep. Whereas before, even in Xamarin, before you would have some choices of, okay, this is going to be kind of Android centric, this is kind of Apple centric, and you couldn't do everything through forms, but now what they're telling us is it's going to be one code base. And we'll see if that dream is going to be true, but I think they'll hit it next quarter, the second quarter of next year, 6 months from now, maybe June, it may be May. That is coming out. It's going to change the way people build things. And I've been saying this for a couple of years, is that if you're building mobile with just Android Studio or just Swift, I believe you're doing it wrong, because you need to push to 2 platforms. And I still see teams trying to build
we've seen
2 siloed teams on 2 siloed apps.
Yeah.
And then the app's not the same, and the experience is different between
Yep.
the different versions or whatever. And they're like, so like, it's just teams will adopt cross-platform mobile development, and now you can also push that to a Mac desktop, which is kind of cool. I mean, like, if you think about it, it gives you another audience. So I want to push it to a MacBook, and it's a mobile app, but I also can tailor that experience on the UI, but I don't have to change the functionality of it. And I think that's what Maui's super exciting.
Yeah, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good.
Yeah.
So let me share this real quick. Yeah, let me.
Okay. Probably got a lot of questions coming in or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have some stuff for some chat. We'll come to the chat at the end of the day.
Haters
Look at this.
gonna hate.
I literally saw this the other day. Look, when was this? 27th. So what are we now? Yesterday, right? This is 28th. So this came out yesterday, right?
Yeah.
Most despised tech brands. Look, Microsoft dominates this world map for most despised tech brands, which is another reason. And I say that to tell you that there's another reason that people don't choose .NET and C#, because for some reason they equate like this, and they hate them for some reason. I don't know why. Which, by the way, that's tech brands. If we come down here to most hated brands, Uber dominates this. By the way, in countries that Uber is, Uber dominates this list.
Why?
I don't know. I have no idea. And Sony in Canada, look, which is interesting. I don't know why, but
people not liking Sony in Canada, huh?
I guess not. But Uber for the US, Uber for the UK. I think there's Uber in a couple other places too. It seems to be wherever Uber is, Uber dominates this list. So you have to say that this is the tech part of it. But Microsoft is technically a hated company on this list.
Yeah, and then it's in Asia too, and then we see that from when you guys are calling in from other parts of the world, say India or Asia. We can tell right away, like, the hate for it.
You go, look. So this is their kind of like, I don't know exactly how they did this thing.
Well,
but
it's just like if you're popular, you're just hated. I mean,
well, it is because but people do because if I scroll down this list, look, like I was shocked at the one on here, which I was like, this is too funny. Hold on, this one was great. This was where did I see this one? I was like, no, how is that even on this list? Like Porsche's on here. Look, Mercedes is on here. Ferrari was on here. And I was like, oh, here you go, Ferrari, look. I mean, I make this joke all the time. Who hates Ferrari, man?
I mean,
like,